Club, and we do this as a yearly event. We've tried it every year for a couple of years to help people with their tax appeals. We did it 2 years ago. When we did it, we had 151 people. That's when we got the big increase, you know. We're doing this just for education for you. And it doesn't matter what town you're in. I'd like to introduce our speaker. This is Beverly Serrano, and Beverly, she's a real estate agent, she's an appraiser, and most of all, she was on the Monmouth, commissioner on the Monmouth County Tax Assessor's Office, so she knows her stuff, and she just gave, she's been giving lectures to the Board of Realtors, training some of her, agents so that they can find out what's going on. Bev, this is a little loose.
I'm not going to use the mic unless the lady filming back there insists.
Okay.
So we'll see. So, yes, welcome everyone. I was talking to somebody, this gentleman right here, and I need to tell you this is educational and informal as far as what I'm doing. And I hope that because it's educational, you will have the tools to go home and think about putting your appeal together. But then when you put it together, you'll know whether or not you should appeal or not. And while JJ says, this applies to everyone, I have to make one very large distinction. If you're in a town that has been just revalued, under the law, the assessor says that assessment you have represents true market value and you're at 100%. If you're in a town like mine in Middletown, you're in the second or third year of after a revaluation. And when that occurs, inside your pamphlet, you'll find a one-page form. This form will become very, very important to you if you are in a town that is first year or multi-year after revaluation. I'll try to tell you how to use this form with the form that's on the back of this beige booklet that you have. And I would like to refer to it as the Bible. Monmouth County does an excellent job of giving you the information that you need in order to put an appeal together or to discover whether or not you have an appeal. And for towns that are not in a revaluation mode, every town in the state where this applies has a 15% swing either way. And so the information on this one-page form will become very important when you go to apply it on this worksheet, which is on the back sheet of this beige Bible, so to speak. It's complicated. I'm going to leave it for last because I don't want your eyes to glaze over at this point in time. For those of you who were here a little earlier and I handed you the long appeal form, I just discovered, because JJ picked these up from the Monmouth County Board of Taxation, they have gone to an 8 by 11 form rather than the 8.5 by 14 form. There's one little section that's missing so that you can do it. They're paper forms and the county is still accepting this appeal form, but they're encouraging you to file online. And I looked at their site today. It's not hard. You really have to just Google Monmouth County Board of Taxation, and the site will come up. And you'll see a picture of, after you click on it, you'll see a picture of the tax board administrator. And there's a menu, and it says, it doesn't say, do you want to file appeal? It says, to file an appeal online. You just click on it and follow the instructions. Monmouth County Board of Taxation, and you can find, they're right here on the front. You can find the proper way to put it in. You Google it. I just gave gave a seminar on Friday to the realtors, and I had the assessor from Neptune Township with me, and he said that Union County and Monmouth County are way ahead of the curve as far as paperwork is concerned, and the big push will be to file online. It's easy to attach your comparable sales or any other evidence that you have, but you can still use the forms the old-fashioned way, which I probably prefer myself. The other document you have is something that I've put together over time. The 11 commandments of working your way through filing an appeal. And it not only talks about the dates and other things that you have to supply to the county tax board and the assessor, but it also will go into, let's say the assessor does not settle with you after you put an appeal in. A friendly assessor doesn't call you up and say, gee, you have a great appeal, come on in, we'll settle it. That's like the checks in the mail. So there's information on what happens at the appeal and what you should be prepared for, and I hope that it's helpful to you. The other thing I just thought of about filing online, once you file your appeal online, you don't then have to go to the assessor and furnish the assessor with a copy of an appeal or the town clerk. It's all done at once. If you do it this way, manually, then you need to go and serve it to the county board. You have to serve a copy to the assessor and one to the clerk. And as you can see, it's different colors so that you know which one to serve on which person. So I'd like to get a sense, I have a sense of you guys are from Freehold Township, and you're from Freehold Township, and how about you? And you're from all the way over in Middletown, Freehold Township.
Freehold Township.
We're also here in Union Beach, too.
Oh, okay, all right.
Real Township.
They're all township.
Okay, so this will be interesting, and it's good, because you're all at 100%. So the essence of what I'm going to tell you, as far as that goes, you simply have to prove market value. You won't have to worry about Chapter 123 and that form that I just showed with all the numbers on it, the ratio. If you're in a town like Middletown, as I said, you would have to worry about proving market value, but then doing the math to see if you're over the upper limit. Again, I try not to get into it because it's complicated. So,
That gentleman's got a question.
Just one
Yes.
question. That letter that I received in January.
Mike.
Is that the market?
may I use that as a good example? This is a letter you apparently got from the revaluation company.
Bev, I'm sorry, could you use the mic, or at least just a little bit, because there's an awful lot of background noise.
Okay. This gentleman received, like all of you did in Freehold Township, and the question he had was, is this what they're saying it represents true market value? The answer is yes. And the revaluation company is an extension of the assessor, although the assessor is the final say on if you go and file an appeal. The assessor has the final authority to decide whether to settle with you or make a change, or whether you'll have to appear at the county board. And I think that's a good segue into my little handout that looks like the 10 Commandments. So thank you for using that as an example. Okay. So if you'll open up your handout, Commandment number 1 says, you shall remember that the assessor is always right about your assessment unless. The unless is unless you prove and have enough evidence to prove to the commissioner at a hearing that the assessment should be something else, and obviously lower. And let me tell you that when and if you do appear before the County Board of Taxation, I know from when I was a commissioner, I always felt that it was an overwhelming situation for the taxpayer, the lone taxpayer sitting down at that side. You would sometimes have a revaluation representative, you'll have the town attorney, you'll have the assessor. In the middle, in Monmouth County, we have 7 commissioners, but usually they sit alone. So you would have 1 commissioner, and then there's you. And unless you appear with an attorney, you have to carry the entire weight of proving that that assessment should be lower. About the only other time you would need an attorney is if you're an LLC or it's in a trust or something other than a fee simple ownership. You must have an attorney, and that often trips people up. I've seen folks come who have the property in an LLC, sit with 50 other people waiting all morning or afternoon to be heard, only to get up here to have the assessor say or the attorney say for the town that they want the case dismissed because they need an attorney. So it's really important that you adhere to that. This is not a rule of local assessors as far as saying that the assessment is always right. It's in the law. And whether you're in Hunterdon County or Salem County or Monmouth County, that's the way it is. And as I said, the Monmouth County Board has done a good job of putting this pamphlet together so that if you read it, and obviously you've taken an additional step to come here to learn more about it, you should have a good chance to at least present a good appeal. Commandment number 2, you shall always remember that your assessment was created on October 1st of the preceding year. And that becomes important when you have to go out and get comparable sales. It becomes important if you have the best sale in the world and it occurred 2 or 3 months after October, it's probably not going to be admissible. Although the county board has said they will take sales, if you really have a good sale, after October 1st of the pre-tax year. But the further away you get from that very special date, what happens is it becomes informational and supportive, but it may not carry the day.
Sorry.
We'll find you. All right, number 3, you shall find 3 good and reasonable closed sales, and you'll find those sales between January 1st, in this particular case of 2012, all the way to December 31st. Now, I have changed this little handout because, for the most part, up until recently, as you know, it's been a very bad market, and it's been very hard for people to find sales between January and October. And so I have been told at the hearing and the programs that I put on that they will accept sales up until December 31st of 2012. But keep in mind, if you have them right around October or early November, they're the best sales. They're more probative of what your property is worth and what you're trying to prove. Number 4, if you do find yourself at a hearing and you are appearing before the reval company, the town attorney, and the assessor, and under this particular 4th commandment, the commissioner says to you, Mr. Jones, why don't you tell me why you're here? Well, I'm here because my neighbor's assessment is $10,000 or $50,000 lower than mine, and I believe my property should be in line with them. I can tell you, 1, politely, it's not, that sort of information is not allowed. They won't consider it. They won't listen to it. And I tell you this and try to tell you so that you will stay away from giving in, even in frustration of talking about it, because there's only one person at the hearing that you need to convince. It is not the reval company, it is not the town attorney, it is not the assessor, it's the commissioner. So you don't want to be pulled off track by these three, any of them saying, look, that's a commissioner, that's not admissible, and they should know that. First of all, it's, even for me, and I am a little seasoned, even for me, it's nerve-wracking to appear, unless you're a really seasoned attorney. It's you know, you feel intimidated, or you want to be able to put your best foot forward. So I tell you this so that you won't be pulled off from your mission of trying to get the information to the commissioner. And the other reason is your neighbor's assessment may be wrong. So the old adage, two wrongs don't make a right, that's the bottom line. The next thing is another area, commandment number 5, that trips taxpayers up all the time. And we're all frustrated with our taxes, every one of us. But again, it's one of those caveats. Do not talk about your taxes. Because if you've already mentioned accidentally that your neighbor's assessment is lower, and then you come along and say, well, my taxes are too high, the commissioner is, and I know from my own experience, I automatically say to myself, didn't this person read the instructions? Because you will find everything that I'm telling you in that beige Bible that you have. So you don't want the commissioner to click off. What you want to do is stick to what you're there for, the description of your house and your comparable sales, and painting a picture for the commissioner of just why you believe your property is assessed too high and what you've brought to prove that. Commandment number 6 is the third strike. People will say, well, let me read it to you. Thou shalt not break up your assessment no matter how much you disagree with it. You have to just consider the bottom line. Is it worth $371,000 or isn't it? Whatever it is. I think if I can repeat it, the assessor who spoke with me on Friday hears this all the time, he said, to the room full of realtors. And he said, so what I tell the taxpayer is, okay, your land assessment is $300,000 and the assessment on your house is $100,000 and you don't like the land. Okay, I'll change it. I'll just take $200 off the land and put it on your house number. Now that's sarcastic, and if the assessor were ever to say that at an appeal, I could see the reactions on your face. First of all, you don't deserve to be spoken to that way, but the bottom line is that's the only way he can get the taxpayer's attention that this commandment that I've just given you, number 6, is the fact that just talk about the bottom line. If your assessment is $350 and you brought comparables that are good to show that it should be $300 or $250 or whatever, that's all you should worry about, not the way it's broken up. Number 7, only God rests on the 7th day. Somewhere in your booklet you will see that you must not only file your appeal on time, in the case of Freehold Township, I guess you have until May 1st. Those of us from Middletown have until April 1st. That's got to be in there on time, into their office. But more than that, let's say you don't have all your comparable sales information together and you haven't put it in. Right now, the most important thing is to file the appeal, to make sure you get it in so you have your day in court. But if and when you do have your comparable sales, you need to have them in my opinion, way before, 7 days before the county board sends you a little postcard to tell you when you're going to have your hearing. If the town looks at your comparables and they decide that you might have a case, so what they do is they'll send you their comparables. They need to comply with the 7-day rule. So if you're sitting at a hearing and you didn't get them truthfully 7 days before the appeal hearing so that you could study them and you could speak about why they probably are not good comparables, you need to raise that objection, or at least whatever the right word is. You need to tell the commissioner, I didn't get them. But I assure you, you will get them before 7 days. And then in addition to knowing all about the comparables you've put in, you need to get in your car and go look at those comparables so that you can talk about them, especially if you disagree with them. The commissioner will be listening. Now, just a PS about that. You may get the comparables from the town in the mail. How many of you have ever been in any kind of a courtroom situation? Okay. You know that aside from Judge Judy on television where everybody interrupts everybody else, this is generally a relaxed hearing, but they operate similarly to a court of law in the sense that you will go first to testify, and when you're finished, you're quiet. And then the town gets their chance to testify. Commissioner may ask questions and what have you. Let's say you got the comparable sales from the town in the mail. You can't challenge them until the assessor actually enters them into evidence. And that is a source of frustration for a lot of folks, pro se, doing it yourself. So you just need to know that even though the commissioner tries to put you at ease, and you should know that you're not going to be hauled off to jail or whatever, they do operate under these rules of evidence. So if you're really just gung-ho to tell the commissioner why those comparables are the worst in the world, you can't say anything about them until the town puts them in. And let's say the town sent you 3. Let's say they sent you 5. They may find that they're only going to enter 1. That's the only one you can talk about. I hope I'm not getting in too deep here, but that's the way it works, again. Commandment number 8. Are you the expert or do you need one? I've found in my many years of being a commissioner that you know the most about your own property. You're the best expert as far as telling the court and the commissioner about your home. How many bedrooms, how many baths, what's the condition, do you have a water problem, are you on a busy street, whatever the situation is. So I find that generally speaking you're a good expert in that regard. Where you have to be almost as good is when you present your comparable sales. If you go to your friendly realtor and they give you 3 good sales, or you do this on your own, be prepared to discuss those sales in a way that you can paint a picture for the commissioner as to why those sales are really very good. They're not perfect. As you know, there's no perfect comparable sale. Rarely is. So you've got to be able to articulate in a very short period of time about those comparable sales and how they support your position. If you have a complicated property, or if you feel you're not confident in doing it, or let's say you have a specialty property like a small multifamily or something like that, it may be better to seek the advice of an appraiser to be able to prepare an appraisal, present it objectively. They're not there, and I'm an appraiser, we are not there to advocate for you. We are there to advocate for what's in our report and why we concluded the value that we came to. Yes?
Does a comparable have to be in a certain area of the home or across town? Does it have to be?
The question is, does the comparable, should it be right close in the vicinity of your home? Can it be across town, or where can it come from? Well, an easy way to, you've all probably bought and sold homes, and so you do what buyers do. If you're in a neighborhood where right around your home, for instance, there aren't any comparable sales, and even if there are, they're not the best ones, it's like a target. Your house is in the middle, and you keep going out and out and out until you find a comparable neighborhood where a buyer might go if they couldn't find a home in your neighborhood. That's the easiest answer. For properties that are unique, that may take some doing, and the search is on to find where those comparables might come from. And again, once it gets more complicated, you may or may not need the help of an independent appraiser to help you. Look at it, always try and look at it through the eyes of the buyer. Where would they go if they couldn't find a home in your area or property? Yes, ma'am.
Really, when you talk about do you or do you not need an appraiser, what kinds of things are considered? How would one, if you're doing this yourself, how would the homeowner know that another house was or was not comparable? What things is it based on? Not just number groups, but doesn't it also depend upon the condition of the home and a lot of...
It does. Did everyone hear the question? How would you really know it's a comparable sale? Well, again, you have to do a lot of work. If you're not familiar with appraising and what the whole process is to go through in order to analyze all those things, it becomes a little more daunting. In a moment, on the back of the form, I added some tips, and step 2 tends to, step 2 and step 4, of course, you know how to describe your home and what have you, but step 4, be prepared to compare and describe the closed comparable sales you selected. You have to, first of all, let me just say, you do not have all day when you come up here to give your testimony. If you have 10 minutes, to me that's a lot, if you know what you're doing. I usually don't have much more than 10 minutes, and I know how to do this. Sometimes you'll get a commissioner that will give you more time, but it's probably only 15 minutes because there are usually about 50 people sitting in there, and they've got to get through all those appeals. So that's kind of helpful in a way. Say you go to the realtor or another expert and you find a comparable sale. Obviously you want sales that are similar with the same bedrooms, similar square foot. You can get similar. Look for those similarities. Don't focus in on, being so precise. Bedrooms, baths, decks, interior streets, exterior streets. And I think I just find that taxpayers do exercise common sense when they're doing it, and you'll find a way to pick out those important attributes of the comparables that match up with yours. And if you don't know the condition of the interior and you're able to find out who sold the house, let's say a realtor, ask your realtor friend to, because it's a closed sale, I suppose it's okay to find the realtor and find out what the condition was inside, just in case you're asked about it. And that often happens. The assessor will say, well, were you inside? And you feel like 2 cents because no, you're not inside. That's not the way it works. And you don't want to be pulled off task here to get your story. So you do the best you can. If you think it's too daunting, that may be telling you that you need someone with more expertise to quantify all of that for you. Are there any other questions? Okay. Commandment number 9, don't leave home without an attorney sometimes, and I think we've talked about that. I believe the book probably speaks to the times when you need an attorney. Now, I've seen folks who definitely want to appeal, but they're not going to be around, or they're really scared, or, intimidated by the whole process. And if they can afford an attorney, then they have either appeared with the attorney, or the attorney comes by themselves to do this. Normally, though, they go the extra step and have an appraiser. Now, the appraiser, if someone does do an appraisal of your home, or if you have any other type of expert, let's say an engineer, or let's say there was something wrong with your home like mold or something that affects, that expert has to be at the hearing to testify. And if they have a report, such as an appraisal or a mold remediation, something, whatever it is, if they're going to present a report, it too must be filed with the county board no less than 7 days. Trust me, don't ever go close to the 7th day before the hearing, because it's too close and it's your word against the town as to whether or not it was in on time. And then the commissioner has to decide every once in a while, based on just the parties that are in front of them, the commissioner could rule against you. And obviously, if you don't have that report in, it undermines your whole case. So it's really important to get it in ahead of time if you're going to go to all the time, trouble, and expense. Commandment number 10, what I was alluding to in the beginning, is something called Chapter 123. And that is the formula, I'll try and explain the best way I know it. The formula that is on the last page of your beige workbook. It's ratio driven, and the town has the ability to agree with you, for instance, that you may have a case that your assessment should be lowered, and they may agree with you if you've gone to the trouble of getting comparable sales, and they may agree with you even as to your opinion of value. But when they take that value and plug it into this formula for Chapter 123, and it falls within the 15%, that's what I call winning the battle and losing the war. And what I've learned, even though I haven't been a commissioner since 1997, but I have appeared before the county board in Monmouth County. Well, let me just say this. When I was a commissioner and we had to conclude who had the most supportive value, we would have to do the calculations right there or after the hearing. And based on that, then it would be put into a form of a judgment. What happens today, and I agree with it 100%, because it takes any kind of, I want to choose my words, but it takes any kind of, it should raise your confidence level that all the commissioner should have to do at the conclusion of your testimony and the town's testimony is decide who proved whether or not the assessment should be lower, and what is it. And that's all they do. The mechanics of calculating Chapter 123 are left to a computer, not left to human beings to fool around with it. So it's really important that you prove the value, and know that if you get a judgment in the mail and your assessment has been lowered and you are in a town that's in a non-revaluation year, if you are successful in getting your property assessment lowered, then it was because you proved market value and you did everything right. It doesn't apply to you in Freehold Township because all you had to do was prove value and prove it's, overcome the assessor's value. So that's a good thing. But again, those of you who are in a non-revaluation year, you should probably photocopy that last page of the beige book, have a lot of worksheets, do your homework, plug in the numbers, and then you can tell, A, whether you have a case or you don't have a case. You may have a case in the sense that you can prove market value, but when you do the math, you're not going to get any change in value. And taxpayers are often upset about that, and they don't know why, and it's only because they don't know about this 15% rule. Yes?
We in Freehold Township really won't know exactly how much we owe in taxes until later in this year, right? So we're not really going to know whether it's going to be worth our while to try to appeal. Not this year, right?
Well, yes and no. Again, the taxes, I know it's so logical to put the two things together. I know that. But for the purposes of what we're talking about tonight, you're just going to have to do your homework and make that informed decision on whether or not you should appeal. Because just make it on market value. Don't complicate it. If you win, your taxes are going to go down. I don't know if it's going to go down a lot or whether a little. The good news is that assessment should stay in place for a while until they do another reassessment or something like that.
What's the fee for us to file?
$25.
How much?
$25.
No, it's based, the fee to file your appeal is based on the value of your assessment, and that's in the book. It's probably in the first or second page, and it will tell you. Obviously, if you have a $500,000 or $600,000 home, it's not going to be $25.
Did they just change that? Because it
No.
used to be.
No, I don't think so, JJ. Age 3? Any of you have houses or properties over $1 million? No, that was a silly question. Anyway, well, we should be happy. Anyway, you may want then to not have to go to the county board, and you can file directly to tax court. And that's in the book, too. Well, I'm glad we had a laugh about something. Yes? How does the fee work if you have to hire an attorney? I had an attorney and an assessor appear with me for this informational seminar for realtors. I will tell you what he said.
And I used him for the condo. That's why I said I paid $25. We each had paid $25. We each paid $25 on our fee. That's why I thought it was. Okay.
So just,
Well, okay. He, what he did was whatever he got us in a reduction, he took half of that as his fee. Okay. And I actually went from 200,000 down to 175. So I went down 25,000 in my assessment, and he took half of the tax savings. So let's say the tax saving was 400. Okay, I'm sorry. So let's say the tax saving is 400. He took 200. Okay. We didn't know that we were going to get revalued in Freehold the next year.
if you're going to hire an attorney who's skilled in this, you need to talk to them about it. We're not the best ones to talk about. Attorneys can take in a contingent fee. Appraisers cannot. So if you go out to retain an appraiser, you're going to get a flat fee because it's against their licensure and ethics to do that.
And what Jeff said is sometimes at the meeting that we had on Friday, sometimes they will plug in the numbers for you and tell you if it's worth it for you to go ahead and do this, because it's not going to take your money if it's not going to do you any good.
And what JJ is speaking about, she lives in a condo complex called Briarwood. And there, some of the property owners banded together and hired an attorney to have their assessments reduced. You could probably do that in a development, I say, if that's the way it was. But, this was where a number of the condos were all the same square footage, and maybe they were up or down or what have you. So it was worth their while to combine their efforts and hire someone. But that's a frank discussion about the fees you need to have with the attorney.
What is the freehold coming on the radicals, so we know what our taxes will be? We know already what our value.
The rate.
How much coming up the radicals?
When they're coming up with, well, they have filed their book with
So
the
what was the
town,
question?
and
What was
I
the
don't know when,
question?
I think that all happens when the tax rate is struck.
Someone else, what is?
What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. When would Freehold Township be coming out with their ratables, what the town is worth? I don't know the dates. I do know the book was filed January 10th. And it's in the hands of the county board, where they do their calculations along with the Director of Division of Taxation.
So it'll be before May 1st, which is that.
They're doing their budget in April, so, right, wouldn't it be after their budget, Bev?
It probably would.
Maybe after
That's why I don't know the
with budget
dates.
in April, if they ratify it in May, it's going to be right around this time.
And if they get an extension from Trenton, there are a lot of variables. So again, well, another reason, I know it's logical to think about the taxes and, should I or shouldn't I? But that has nothing to do with this hearing. They'll tell you over and over again, it's just a market value issue. And then everything else flows from that. And the 11th commandment, I have added that because Monmouth County wishes that you would file online. Paper reduction, a lot of other things, and it does save you time from going back and forth. Now, just from a layman's point of view, and hearing taxpayers say, well, I talked to my assessor, I went in and talked to him after I got my letter or my card in the mail or whatever, but nothing changed. I thought I convinced him he or she should reduce my assessment. The assessor will not reduce in general, will not reduce or change your assessment without that appeal. That appeal form, at least, is a legal document that allows him to open discussions with you, to talk about your comparable sales, to settle, for you to go in and talk to the assessor in the hopes of convincing him or her that your assessment should be reduced. But without that appeal being filed, he's, unilaterally can't. Now, there is an exception. I had a client come to me the other day. I had handled his appeal in the sense that I prepared an appraisal for him in Leonardo several years ago, 2 years ago, I guess, and he received a reduction. We were successful at the county board level. But this year, he got his card, and his assessment went up $10,000, $10,400 to be exact. And I asked him, did he have an abatement before, and now the $10,000 was being put back on. Anyway, there was nothing wrong with it. I did, as a courtesy to him, go in and talk to our local assessor in Middletown. I asked him if he had the time, would he pull the file and look and tell me the reason, and he knows me, so he did this for me. What was the reason the assessment went up? And it turned out that a clerk had, in the normal course of reviewing properties in the town over the year, went by his property and saw that he had 2 lots, a 25-foot lot and a 25-foot lot. So she combined them and added, by combining them, ascribed an extra $10,400 to that. It was a mistake. She had not looked in the file to see that the lots had already been combined and the assessment shouldn't have changed. So in that particular case, which is rare, the assessor said to me he would file an appeal to correct that and bring it down. So there is hope from time to time when they admit they make a mistake. Yeah, but it's all in how you approach the assessor. Everybody needs to be treated with dignity on both sides, even even the assessors.
Sometimes, what is that card that they can get on the town that tells them about their house? Is it called green?
If you go on to, again, to the Monmouth County Board of Taxation website, there is a way, I don't know if it's a tab, that you can actually put in your address and get a copy of your property record card, which describes your property, you know, how many bedrooms, how many baths, basement, finished, garage, yada yada, and it gives an outline of your property. You can take a look at that and make sure there's nothing materially wrong with it. Do they have you assessed for 5 bathrooms? That will raise your assessment. That could happen if they never got into your house. They're allowed to, if they are not given access to the property, they're allowed to do the best they can to describe your property and create an assessment. They have to do that. There are lots of people that don't want them in there, and so, you know, they've got to be assessed. So they're not going to say you have 2 bedrooms when, you know, and really agree with that. They'll put 5 bedrooms in there once in a while.
What was the name of that card?
It's called a property record card. So let's turn our attention to the back of the form. And let's say you filed your appeal, you've done your homework with the comps, you're ready to go, the assessor hasn't called you, you get the card in the mail to go to the hearing. I've already described who you're going to see, and I do this so that you won't be intimidated. You probably, as I said, will have 5 to 10 minutes, probably 10 minutes on average, to describe your property. Direct your remarks to the commissioner. Try not to be pulled off discussing things with the assessor. And if the assessor or the attorney interrupts you, just take a deep breath, answer the question, try not to be flustered, and then go on with your presentation. But the only person in the room you need to be concerned about is the commissioner. The town has done their job. They've put your assessment on the books. They believe that it's accurate. They're there to defend the worth of the town, not to erode it. They're not going to, and of course, you know, today with budgetary constraints, they're going to dig in. Sometimes it's prudent for them to dig in, because if you go to a hearing, even to see how they work, or you're there on your own, you will see that people do not prepare, and it's almost a waste of time, a really waste of time, of everybody's time, because they didn't prepare. So if you follow these very fundamental instructions and read that book, you should be in good shape, and that's the point today, to teach you or educate you or enlighten you as to what's needed so that you will have a chance. So you're directing your remarks to the commissioner. When you're finished, you're finished. Then let the town go. Lots of times I've seen people get so upset about whatever the attorney says at this point and the assessor, because they don't agree with it. But don't be like Judge Judy and start interrupting, because it's just not going to work. It's just write your notes down, and then usually the commissioner will turn to you after they're finished and say, is there anything you want to add? Yes, Commissioner, I would like to add that this is my point of view about this, that, or the other. Step 2, and you can do this at home and in the bathroom and in the shower, you know, succinctly describe your house or your property. How many bedrooms? What's the style? Bathroom, basements, garage, decks, fireplaces, and what have you. That should really only take about 30 seconds to do. And do tell them whether you, especially if your property is worn or not updated, and you find with some of your comparable sales on the listing that they're updated, kitchens and granite countertops and all of that, you need to paint a picture for the commissioner that you, like me, still have a kitchen that's about 40 years old. Those are big ticket items, and they count in the comparable sales if they've got better stuff. Number 3, tell the commissioner in a sentence or 2 why your assessment does not represent market value. Then 4, begin your little dissertation on the comparable sales. You know, the form, I think, provides for up to 5 sales. In the seminar I've given to the realtors now twice, and I tend to believe this because doing an appraisal, I usually use just 3 sales. Pick your 3 best sales. And the assessor told the realtors, even if you pick the 3 sales that you really like the best, start off with the one you think supports your point. Hang your hat on that one. Go for it. And then, of course, in step 4, after you describe the comps, end your little speech with what you believe your property, well, it's actually step 5, and with your opinion of what you believe the value of your property should be based upon your comparable sales. Tell them it should be this. It's your opinion. That's what I do when I'm presenting an appraisal. That's where I'm headed, taking all that information like a funnel and coming right down to what's important. What did I think my property was really worth as of October 1st of the pre-tax year? Leave that last thought with the commissioner and then just sit back and wait for the rest of the hearing to take place. The hearings are open. You could always call the Monmouth County Board of Taxation and ask when the first set of hearings will be. You can go in and listen to any town. Usually the hearings are held in the Hall of Records in Freehold, in a small, very small courtroom, and you'll see when you get 50 people in there and it's a small space, you know, tempers can flare and what have you, but it's interesting to listen to what people say when they don't prepare. And I'm confident that you'll all do a really good job. So with that, I'll take some other questions if you have them. Yes. In the May 1st for towns that have been revalued.
Right.
But now they don't come out with a tax rate until May 15th, so everybody have an idea of the should.
No, you have an idea of whether you should or shouldn't when you go get the comparable sales. Try not to concentrate on that part of it. It's so logical to do that, and I understand that. But this whole thing is geared. And as I said somewhere in the beginning of well, don't mention your property taxes because it's just not evidence of value.
Let's say they just sent you that letter and they say your house is worth 300 and you find closed sales comparables in your development. Let's say you're in a development, they're all showing 250 and the house is comparable. You got, shot at, going in and doing that. And what Bev said, it is very intimidating. I went with a friend who I did the comps for, okay? Gave her all the comps, and they do try to throw you off. Because right away, we have a little bit of advantage because we're realtors, so some of the houses we've shown or we've sold. So I know if it's a short sale, I know if it's a divorce. When you get in front of them, you're looking at 3 closed comps. They already know this was an estate sale, this was a foreclosure, this is a short sale, this person had to sell right away. They're always trying to hit you with that. And as Bev said, you just have to stay focused, and it's very hard not to be intimidated. But that's what they do. So you really have to know a little bit about the property.
So that's probably something I may have not really focused in on. When you go out to look for comparable sales, you may find a really good sale that seems to fit in with what you think your property's worth. You need to go a step further to be sure. And you can figure it out from a couple places. First, on your own to find out if it was a short sale. Any distress sale, foreclosure, short sale, they even think an estate sale could be under duress. You should stay away from. The exception to that is if you really delve into it. I don't personally, as an appraiser, I don't believe every estate sale represents a family that dumped the property, but that's the idea. That's where they'll say, that's where they try and erode the support for your appeal. So you do need to know that. Now, the second place, you might get a hint of whether or not what the town thought about that sale. In the tax records themselves, which record the sales, there's a category that simply has two initials, NU, means non-usable from the point of the assessor. If he or she believes the sale came about because of a divorce, because of a short sale, because of a foreclosure, because of an estate sale, they have the right to fill out a form and report to the Division of Taxation that sale shouldn't be in the study of all the sales in the town, so they call it non-usable. And next to the NU is a number. And I believe there are about 33 categories that the assessor has to choose from to eliminate a sale. So JJ is absolutely right. If you pick those sales and you turn in 3 comps and 2 of them fall into this NU category, they will say that. And then what happens is you're left with 1 sale if the commissioner agrees and you don't know what they're thinking. On the other hand, if you really believe that's a good sale, you have to do your homework. I know when I prepare an appraisal for a taxpayer, I do everything I can to stay away from those sales, only because I need good sales in there so that they can't undermine my thought process. Yes.
So but that is a matter of public record if it was in the tax record, and you.
Yes. And if you go on the website, Monmouth County Board of Taxation website, there is a tab and it shows all those sales. So let's say the realtor gives you 123 Main Street, you can go find that sale and when it was recorded, the deed, book and page, and I believe on there it will have whether it's an NU or not. If it's a good sale, it won't have any classification next to it, any kind of number.
The percentage for an appeal has to be greater than 50%.
Your assessment can never be more than 100%. So when you do, if you enter in a town of non-revaluation, the calculations are done for you
I was
on,
thinking the reval itself for 100%.
and that's 100%.
So to appeal that,
Well,
the market value is 300, so they appeal that, we would go after the,
less than that.
anything less than that?
Yeah. And in a town where there's a reval, that's a piece of cake. For people like in Middletown and elsewhere, we have to go that extra mile and do that calculation to make sure that we don't fall in that corridor and that we are 101% or 115 or what have you. I know the folks in the back of the room, so they have coffee occasionally, or have coffee, so I can take the time and explain it to her rather than kind of confuse everybody. And same with Mercedes, who came all the way over from Middletown as well. Yes, ma'am.
So, we've been reassessed, we got our raises significant, and we're happy with our raises. It's a lot lower than what we're currently being taxed. Is there anything that we have to do for April when the budget comes out, or has to drop because of the reassessment, or do we still have to?
The question was, does she have to, she loves her assessment. That's a good thing. That's, if you agree with it, in other words,
It's a lot lower than.
okay. So, again, let's say everybody's was lowered, and it changes. They have to make a tax rate in order to keep funding the level of budget. So your tax rate could still be higher, but maybe in the end, the calculations, your taxes are lower. I don't know. It's, they have the old 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 of it is right, 1/3 of it's not right, and the other is whatever. So again, I know you want to equate the taxes, but it's more confusing and frustrating. You just got to go with the flow. If you're not happy with your tax rate and all of that, you have to get involved and go to town meetings and exercise your right as a citizen to say, how can this happen? You know, what's going on with the budget? And yada, yada.
I will tell you,
know.
your water and sewer bill is going up. Okay, again, 3 years, this is the third year, so it's going up again.
Mercedes?
I'm curious about what you think. Is there a possibility to lower the property tax assessment because of damage from hurricane?
Post-hurricane, yes.
Hurricane.
Well, here's what I heard the tax assessor say, and JJ can correct my memory, because we asked him about that Friday. Under the statute, I think it's between October 1st of every year and January 10th, you can go to the assessor and say, my property was damaged, maybe it burned down, hit by Sandy, materially damaged, and present your case to have your assessment modified. If you didn't do that, what I think I heard the assessor say was that underneath all of this, the whole state, all the assessors wherever this has happened are kind of struggling with this. He told us Friday that they were authorized to meet with taxpayers, to be a little bit lenient and understand. You should file the appeal to begin with, because that you have to file the appeal. Yeah, you need to do that. They had the authority to modify the assessment depending upon the damage that was supported by evidence up to 30%. I know I did an appraisal in Seabright, for instance, where it was a condominium, 3-story condominium, the whole first floor, the garage and the rec room and back of it, heating system, everything was all destroyed. That assessor came in and it was his opinion that he applied 10%. He had the discretion for 30, from what I heard Friday, but he applied 10% to that property owner. So if you miss the deadline, you need to file the appeal and support that evidence, and that filing the appeal will allow you to talk to the assessor to see if you can work it out, if you've really got information to show that the damage was amounted to be substantial. And other than that, you have to go through the same process of comparable sales. And that presents a problem because, as you know, appraisers and you work from historical data, things that already sold. Right now, we're in this limbo state where we don't know what people are going to do with their property. We don't have, for the most part, we don't have any sales of storm-damaged property in order. So this year is going to be a wash, and from what the assessor, and he's a knowledgeable assessor and has direct access because he's been president of the Assessors Association, to talk with the Division of Taxation to come to meaningful information to help taxpayers in this regard. You have to do, it's going to be strictly what you can work out with the assessor. And then as time goes on, these sales will come about. JJ and I serve on a long-term housing recovery through United Way, and where there's 60, 70 organizations working on various issues dealing with Sandy, and then there's this housing committee that we're on. The best estimate is 5 to 10 years recovery for Monmouth County, where it's been affected, and 7 to 10 years for Ocean County, which is more severe. So you see that's a long, right now we just don't have information. As time goes on, they will have information as far as how far down people have had to sell their property or whatever, or they walk away from it. It's just an unknown right at this point. Interesting, just a postscript to this. one of the things that many groups have been pushing for in this state is some sort of property tax reform. You know, is the current method the right method to raise taxes? The governor has signed a bill, and it's going to be implemented. We don't know too much about it. But Monmouth County and one other county in the state are going to be pilot programs for a type of property tax reform. I glanced at the legislation, and one of the things is to change the assessing date or the appeal date to like January. So whatever they have devised, if it works in Monmouth County over the next 2 years, and that affects all of us wherever we live, and in the other county, perhaps down the road, whatever it is they are working on will have been an effort to ease property tax reform, because we're all complaining because they never seem to do anything about it legislatively. And they've had many studies over many years on what to do, but have never changed the formula of relying on property tax assessments to raise taxes.
And one of the problems too is when because sometimes it takes 10 years for them to do these assessments. When they assessed us in the market, we had higher prices at one time, so that's what they assessed it, because it was the year before, and then the market collapsed, so your houses weren't worth what it was. So that's the problem. They was talking about doing it on a steadier, sooner basis, so that keep it level.
Middletown hadn't been revalued for almost 15 years. So, you know, the sticker shock was tremendous, and those swings in the market. So this may be an aspect of this pilot program to allow assessors to reassess more frequently, every 2 years, and maybe even reassess certain types of properties. If other properties are stable, but another, let's say condominiums are taking a dive or something like that, this may be part of that to equalize things out, so that some segments of the public are not carrying a higher tax burden than others, new construction and what have you. So.
And if any of you know anyone that has a house that was damaged, you have until, they extended it till April 1st to file for FEMA. And everyone that was damaged should file for FEMA. Doesn't matter whether you take it or not, you should even file for small business loans, because it doesn't just apply to businesses, it applies to you, residential, applies to landlords. Just file. You have to be on file in order to be able to accept or get anything. And you must refile every 2 weeks. They've also extended the temporary housing for people that are in hotels till I think March 23rd. But you have to do that, because after the date, then you can't do it anymore. And it's very important, because the group that we work with, they have committees, they have volunteers. A whole bunch of volunteers are going to be coming in the spring, and we need housing for them so that they can help. They're going to bring college kids in from all over the country that will be willing to work on projects. If you have a project, they can help you for free. Do your home. And we have a warehouse sitting with material that they will give you for free. But you must be registered with FEMA, and you must have a case worker. It's called case manager. And that's what we're trying to coordinate, all these organizations. Without the faith-based organizations, we would be nowhere. They are phenomenal. They come from all over the country. They've done this in every disaster in the United States and in the world. And they come in and they do these things. They have experts.
I'm going to end just for the couple of you that are in Middletown, and others of you can follow along. At least for this year, you can relax. But you can follow along with this next just 5 minutes. If those from Middletown will take out the form in your packet that has all these figures on it. Right. Find Middletown. And run your finger all the way to the right, to the last 2 columns on the right. The last 2 columns on the right are called the legally permissible common level range. the county tax board has calculated for you the 15% swing. Right now, Middletown has a ratio of between sales and assessments of 94.81%. In the last two columns on the right for Middletown, you will see that the 15% swing at the bottom, or they call it the lower level, is 80.59%, and the upper level is 100%. So you could technically, in the car or when you get home, on that back page of the beige form, just simply follow putting in those numbers at the top. The common level, say for Middletown, is 94.81%. The lower limit is 80.59, and the upper limit is 100%. The next thing, if you already know your assessment, you go follow the page down and put the assessment in. All you have to do to kind of test your knowledge without even going to go out and get comparable sales, if you have a sense of what your assessment should be based on what you think it's worth, then just put that figure in where it's supposed to be in the middle line somewhere, divide it. And if the resulting figure comes out and it's over 100%, let's say it's 115% or 102, that's your first blush at saying, I may have a case. In order to prove that, you have to go out and get the comparable sales and still conclude that you're right. If you go out and get the comparable sales and they show you otherwise, and you still want to plug in the number, then you'll know whether you're going to win the battle or lose the war. Okay? Well, with that, you've been a good audience. It's late. I thank you. My number's on the little stone tablet thing if you need to call me for any reason, or JJ, but we thank you for coming out tonight to learn a little bit more about what is really a good system as long as you follow the 10 Commandments. So, thank you.